Hey developers, today we're going to look at algorithms, whiteboarding interviews. We're going to look at the different types of things that you should study for a whiteboarding or algorithm interview. And I'm going to give you just some tips that I've found along the way. I've gone through some of these interviews with Amazon and Google, and so I'll show you some of my tips. So just stay tuned. And before we get too far, let's have a word from our sponsor. Hey guys, when you're building your own website, whether it's for yourself, your business, or a brand, one of the hardest things to do is to find that awesome domain name that is short, relevant, and shows the world what you're all about, which is exactly why I went and got viewcourse.tech, which goes so seamlessly with my brand. I'm currently using it as a really great website platform for my new View course, and it's absolutely perfect. Join the likes of Viacom, Intel, and CES and get your very own .tech at a whopping 90% off on 1, 5, and 10-year domains using the link go.tech/Erik. It'll be in the description below. Only this Black Friday. The sale starts on the 26th of November, so you can pre-register now and get a further 10% off on the same day sale. So make sure you go to go.tech/Erik in the link in the description below. Pre-register and you can get an additional 10% off. Thanks. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. And if you don't know, my name is Erik. I'm a full-stack software developer. I'm also the author of a few books, and you can find everything in the link in the description below. And before I start, I want to ask you guys, how do you guys prepare for algorithm interviews? Leave a comment below and let me know. That I just want to see how you guys do it. So let's go ahead and begin here. So why is it important to learn algorithms? So essentially, lots of FANG jobs, and that's, if you've heard this acronym, you've probably heard it before. This stands for Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. They typically use these type of interviews. And actually, it's not even these companies. A lot of Silicon Valley companies, a lot of large corporations use these algorithm type interviews because they really show you how in-depth you've studied for your interview. It's a lot of problem solving. So it definitely, I think if you get good at these problems, you'll become a better problem solver. And there's whole competitions. When I was in college, there was a programming contest, and it basically was all these algorithm type problems. And we'd get like an hour to get as many done as we could. And if you got a lot done, you would win prizes. And there was whole national competitions. But really, I think it just makes you a really good programmer if you can do these problems and do them well. One big caveat, though, is that I have met some amazing developers in my career that don't know algorithms, and they are way better than me. And you see them on Twitter and you hear about them. They're just amazing. So you don't need to know these algorithms to be a good programmer. But it is a rubric that a lot of companies use when they're trying to hire someone. So it's good to learn them. So why do developers hate these type of interviews, these whiteboarding algorithm type interviews? So really, I mean, this might discourage you from doing this, but I want to kind of give both sides. So rarely, you end up never really using a lot of these in your day-to-day job. And if you do, there's already pre-created libraries that are already inside the language that you're using, or you can bring in really easily that do all this. You don't have to get in the nitty-gritty of creating, let's say, like a linked list from scratch. I mean, it's really, or a map from scratch. Of course, if you are working at a company that gets billions of different views and you have hundreds of million people coming to your website, you have these scaling issues that are pretty unique to your company, and you might end up doing some of these things because when you're looking at algorithms, you're really looking at a lot of time and space complexity. And if you are trying to do something with 100 users, that's one thing. But if you have millions of users, milliseconds count, and that could reduce the amount of computing time. It could reduce the amount of server load. So this is extremely important, and also could be much faster from your users. Once again, luckily, modern software development and web development usually don't have to deal with this in a day-to-day. But if you're dealing with large systems at scale, this probably is a good skill to know. And I kind of funny, you hear a lot of people talk about software development and math. And I kind of feel like there's some parallels between algorithms and learning, like having math. So just like math, you don't end up having to need to know a lot of math to do software development, especially if you're doing web development. But so that's another reason why like you don't use algorithms that much either in your day-to-day job. So it kind of reminds me of math a little bit. I know a lot of CS degrees, usually almost any sort of software engineering or computer science degree out there has at least 1, 2, maybe even 3 classes based on algorithms. And sometimes your whole curriculum at the end of your semesters or at the end of your program might be using different algorithms. So it is something that's taught more commonly in schools, but it's not really taught as often elsewhere. In what I'm trying to say is that usually like self-taught developers, they're not going to look to learn algorithms first. They're going to look to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript. How can I learn React? How can I put all this together? How can I learn programming? Usually that's what people learn. They don't learn these algorithms. Although there's a lot of resources out there, like Free Code Camp has a whole algorithm section. There's a lot of places that also have algorithms, but usually it isn't the focus. I would say boot camps also, from what I've seen their curriculums, algorithms are usually an afterthought or usually at the end of the program when they're trying to help you with interview prep. So it's not something that is taught readily in a lot of situations. And I put a link here, and I'll leave it in the description below. This is from Hiring Without Whiteboards. So this is a repo that I saw that was funny because it just links to companies that have refused to do whiteboarding interviews like this. And usually, I mean, if you don't do a whiteboarding interview, usually you're going to be doing a pair programming or a take-home test interview, which can be as equally stressful. So I don't think there's any real key and any magic bullet to hiring developers to find out if they're good or not. Some companies use whiteboarding and some companies use take-home tests, and some companies you interview with 3 different tech people. They quiz you some questions, and then they'll hire you. So there's a lot of different ways of hiring people, and I don't know if one way is better than the other. If you think one way is, leave a comment below and let me know why algorithms are totally useless and you hate them and they shouldn't be taught and shouldn't be a rubric of how to hire people. So there's a big debate on this. I'm not going to get into it too much more than that, but you can see why there's some reason why people don't like these type of interviews. So should you learn them? I guess that's the ultimate question that we're coming at here, is that, should you learn these algorithms if you're an existing web developer or a software developer, or you're trying to look to become a software developer? Well, I mean, this isn't an easy answer. I would say that it's a good idea that you should learn them, especially if you are looking to get one of these jobs in these companies that actually use algorithms. So you're looking at like Facebook or Google and like the FANG jobs. They're going to use these algorithm type interviews. Even like Stripe and Verizon and a bunch of other companies do too. So if you're looking for these jobs, there's no way of getting around it unless you have some really amazing connections inside the company that can elevate you past their normal hiring process and you can skip the algorithm and whiteboarding. You are going to deal with this. And of course, if this is something that you completely hate, like I said in that previous slide, look for a company that doesn't do a whiteboarding interview. Maybe you can find one if you've been in the industry for 10 years and you're an amazing developer, but you can't do algorithms. There's a ton of companies out there that will hire you. You can pair with them. You can show them that you know everything, and they're not going to ask you these whiteboarding algorithm type questions. And I guess you could make the argument that some whiteboarding questions are not algorithm specific. They might have you do other things, but when I talk about whiteboarding, it's usually algorithms or completing some sort of problem. So you may have heard this before. Anytime you're talking about these type of interviews, there's the grind. And the grind is real. So really, you have to work really hard. So I would say even before you start the grind, you have to do your research. So if you are applying for different jobs, there's so much information out there, especially for these big companies. You can look on Glassdoor, which is an amazing resource. You can look on Reddit. Just search different web dev or different development Reddits for the company's name. You might see some stories about people that have worked there. Look on Google. I mean, there's been tons of engineers that have wrote articles about working at these different companies and the hiring process that they've seen. Usually, some companies like GitLab is completely transparent. You can find their complete handbook that they have, how they do their interviews for people, what they're looking for. Some companies are really transparent about what type of people they want to look for. And this is great because if you do your research, you can see what cultures that you would fit in and what cultures you wouldn't fit in. And you can get an idea of what kind of interview questions you should get. So if you can find a place like Glassdoor, if you look at like Microsoft or Google, there's like hundreds of people talking about their interview experiences. And then sometimes they even put in what kind of interview questions they get. So I would make a list, bring up an Excel spreadsheet, try to target 3 or 4 of these big companies that you want to do, and start writing down every single interview question that you can find online that this company's asked for. You probably won't be asked them, but you might get similar questions to those. Usually companies have a list of hundreds of algorithms or these whiteboarding type questions that they ask, so they don't reuse them. So it's not like you're going to be able to, learn one and then be set, but you can at least kind of get an idea of what they ask. It's not even a bad idea if you have some friends, families, some kind of contact in the company to talk to them first to try to see if you can get an idea of how their interviewing or hiring process works. You can even contact them on LinkedIn if you're brave enough. Some people might think that's a little too much, but if you're looking for a job and this is your livelihood and you really want to work at a company, it might be a good idea to contact someone on LinkedIn. Also, usually when you talk to the recruiter at some point, they'll tell you what you need to prepare for. They want you to succeed too. So they might give you, like at Google, they give you a documentation of like, here are the things that you probably should start studying. I mean, it's pretty vague and it's a huge subject, but like these type of algorithms you might want to study. So you will get some information before you get into the interview. There's also some really amazing Facebook groups that just all they do is talk to you about interview prep. So I use this one called HH Coding Interviews Prep, and then you can just say, hey, I'm going for an Amazon internship. What kind of questions I get? And then people will either respond to you or they'll say, hey, go ahead and message me and I'll explain it. And then you can even get some more information about the hiring process. The more information you have, better off you'll be. So another thing you should do is, after you've kind of gotten enough information, you've done your research on your companies, and you kind of got an idea of what kind of type of questions they are, I would look at the data structures. Usually these are kind of the low-hanging fruit of interview prep questions. So if you are lucky to get a question like this, you are going to be in good shape. So like create a linked list from scratch is a great beginner algorithm question that some companies might give you. Create a queue, a stack, hash tables, heaps, priority queues, trees, graphs. So be able to create these from scratch, understand how they work. And these are almost like the fundamental building blocks. You might get other questions that rely on these data structures that you can use, like a binary search. Like binary search is like a really common one when you just want to do a really simple one. I actually did a video on that. And then understand how these link in, all these different queues, and there's also sorting algorithms is another one that you can put on here. Understand like the time complexity in Big O. So I stole this from a dev.to article. I guess I'll put a link in the description. But you can see like if you have n log n, these are kind of better and faster of O of n or O of 1. It's like super fast. That means like if you're more things you put in, that speed complexity is really fast. But if you have something like n squared or n factorial, like right here, then that's going to be really, really slow. So more items you add in, more operations, it's just going to be just really slow. And understand how when you create your algorithms, what kind of time and space complexity in Big O it'll be. And then you can even go into other algorithms. You can understand the difference between brute force, greedy, divide and conquer, dynamic programming, backtracing. Understand what these terms are, but more importantly, you'll need to actually do problems in them, not just be able to explain it. No interviewer is going to come and say, can you explain me what a greedy algorithm is? No, they're going to give you a problem that you're going to have to solve. So study schedules, this is going to be vary between person to person. So if you are working full-time already and you're applying for other jobs, you might only have 1 hour or 2 hours a day. And honestly, if you only have an hour or two a day, you probably can only get it done 2, maybe 4 1 to 4 problems. Because honestly, what you want to do is start with the easiest questions. So you're probably thinking like, how do I get these questions? We'll talk about that in a second. There's a bunch of different resources online that will give you amazing amount of questions that you can help yourself with. And actually there's one service called Algo Expert that I use, that I'm actually an affiliate of. I'll talk to you guys for a second. Full disclosure, that I would recommend. I'll put a link in the description for that. But you basically want to start off with the easy questions first, and you want to get to the point where you can just immediately do any easy question and answer it. So this is a lot of just repetition. You just need to go to one easy question, give yourself a half hour. Maybe if you think that's too much, 20 minutes. See if you can finish in the 20 minutes. You can set a timer. If you can't figure it out in 20 minutes, there's no shame in just looking up the answer. Look up the answer, understand how it works, put it into your memory, maybe do it a couple of times, and then go on to the next problem. And I would do that, like if you have 2 hours, maybe try to get 3 problems done in that time. And that's all you need to do. Just give yourself those times. If you only have an hour, maybe you only get 2 problems done. But keep that cadence, and every day give yourself those 2 hours to study. Now, of course, if you don't have any job, then you can spend 8 hours. Or if you have a weekend, which I usually like to spend with my family, I probably wouldn't be able to do that more, but maybe I could do 4 hours. But the idea is that you want to get so good at these easy questions that any easy question that you can get done just in in like maybe 10, 15 minutes. Maybe as soon as you know it, maybe you can get it done in 5 minutes. But that you get in this good rhythm, and you'll start seeing patterns of like these type of problems are this is how you solve it. And you'll be terrible at this. Trust me. You'll think you're dumb. You'll get into your head and think like, maybe this isn't right for me. But after you do them over and over again, you keep looking up the answers, you'll start being able to solve them. And you'll realize they are much, much easier than you thought. It just takes a lot of repetition and practice. Now, there is some people out there that'll probably get these like within one try. And that's not me. Like I took me a long time to understand algorithms. And honestly, if I had to go to an algorithm interview tomorrow, I probably wouldn't do that well. I probably still need to spend some time studying these and getting myself acquainted again, because you do forget them. And like I said, embrace failure. Understand you're not stupid. This is just the way it is. This is just how it is. And this is going to be a grind. It could be a week, could be 2 weeks. And one thing is you got to repeat, but eventually I would say apply. And I would apply even before you think you're ready. So a lot of these companies too, if you do fail the interview, you can reapply within 6 months. Some of them take a year, but you can always reapply. And maybe you also, if you think you're not ready, maybe apply for a job that that you don't 100% want, but maybe can give you some practice. I haven't tried that, but I've heard you could try that too. I would keep a notebook with every time you go to an interview. Write down after the interview is over. Write down every question they asked, so that way, if you've ever been asked those questions again, you'll be able to answer them. You actually find out that some interview places will use the same interview. You'll probably get the linked list or a variation of linked list a few times, so that might be one that you should definitely know really well. So review them after every interview, and don't forget soft skills. This is one way of getting an interview, but this is only one part of it. Usually, if you don't pass this, you're done. Like, there's no way of getting the job. But if you're like on that edge of being hired and not hired, but you have amazing soft skills, that means you be able to talk to the person correctly. You be able to explain what you do and explain your benefits and explain why they should hire you. Then that will help you a lot. That's beyond the scope of this presentation, but keep that in mind. So let me show you this resource. It's algoexpert.io/Erik. So if you go to algoexpert.com/Erik, and the link will be in the description, this is a really cool coding interview site that has hand-selected easy, medium, hard, even like super hard interview questions that you can do. They have video explanations of every single one of them, which are really good. You can actually, there's an editor that you can edit inside. And maybe I'll do a whole video on this, but it's a great resource. Also, I do get a few bucks if you end up purchasing, and you can get 15% off if you use the promo code Erik. So click on the link in the description and then use the promo code Erik, and you'll get additional 15% off. And it's like 50 hours of video explanation, 77 hand-picked questions, just tons of information. If not, if there's other resources, I would say like Leet Code is another one you might hear a lot. You can Google and find a few of these places, but like I said, I really like AlgoExpert for my algorithms. So that's when I would check out algoexpert.io. And one more, a bonus salary information. There's a really cool website called levels.fyi. So if you are applying for Microsoft, Google, in fact, they have a ton of different sites here, which we can, so you can see here, you have Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, but they have tons like Stripe and Sath and Snap and Sophie. You can click on it and you can get salary information. And you can see, kind of get an idea of what the median salary is and how much the stock options are and your total bonus. Because what you'll find in these large companies, if you do get to the privilege of getting hired at these companies, usually you have a total compensation package, which means you'll have a pretty high salary. Most of them are over 100,000. But then you get stock options, you get bonuses. So if you add all those together, it's not unlikely that if you're going from one of these large companies, you could be making $150,000 to $200,000, $300,000. So it does make a lot of sense if you want to be paid one of these high tiers to really work hard on these algorithms. I mean, there's so much money out there for really skilled developers and developers who can pass these algorithms, who have the soft skills, and honestly have experience too is really important as well. So I would check out levels.fyi, go through here and look at the different levels and what people have submitted about these probably aren't 100% accurate and your mileage may vary, but you can see exactly like how much people are getting paid roughly. Another thing you can do is a lot of times if you're doing these algorithm type interviews and you're talking to a lot of companies, if you can do like 5 or 6 companies and get 2 or 3 offers at once, you're going to have much more leverage to play off the different offers and get a bigger starting salary or bigger bonus. So that's another quick tip. All right, so that's all I got today. I want to hear what you guys think about interviewing. Leave a comment below. I really appreciate it. And make sure you visit our sponsor and also algoexpert.io/Erik. Thanks.